Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2020 horror anthology film Asylum, Twisted Horror and Fantasy Tales. Obviously we get numerous directors here on board, and what we get here is quite a lengthy anthology film, and ultimately you get 9 stories as well as a wraparound story of sorts to get your teeth stuck into with this. Now these stories range from just snippets really to some more fleshed out stories, and what we get here with this horror anthology film is actually quite a nicely put together one. I think it's probably a little bit too lengthy, and I think this anthology series of films suffers from some of the little snippets of stories they put in kind of harms it a little bit, because some of the tales, you know, a good horror anthology, you've got the tales that are in it, you should have a beginning, a middle and an end, and it's a very short tale. They don't always work out like that in this horror anthology series of films, but I'll go through them briefly. And the first one, now the first tale, if you remember a few months ago I reviewed on the channel a film called The Cleansing Hour. Well, the first tale on this anthology series is The Cleansing Hour, the 2016 short that I am presuming that the feature film was based on. So it immediately looked familiar to me, and I thought they were ripping it off initially, but no they weren't. It was just a short of The Cleansing Hour, so that was quite a nice one. The second story was a lot of these tales as well were kind of inspired, or you could even argue ripped off, from other more popular horror films, and the second one for me felt like it was certainly a rip-off of Scream. You get this young teenage girl at home receiving phone calls, she gets a visit from a boyfriend, and then this masked killer turns up. So I felt it was quite Scream inspired, the second story. The third story was a very interesting one, and it was a zombie story. But what was different about this one was it tried to portray zombies in a different light, in a sense of them building relationships and almost having feelings to some degree. So it was quite nice to see a different take on a zombie tale. The next story was a subtitled one, and it was essentially about a woman having discussions with her husband, who is supposed to be dead but isn't, and she doesn't want to disappoint the people in the funeral parlour. So therefore her and his mother take turns in trying to kill him so that they are not disappointed at the funeral. A really surreal one this, but actually quite good. The next one was quite short, but one of the most fun ones, and it was a Mexican story, and it was about a group of Mexicans that had been kicked out of the US and are attacked by a huge Donald Trump robot that is piloted by the man himself. So yeah, take that for what it is. It was quite a lot of fun. I did enjoy that one, I'm not going to lie. The next one was an animated tale, really nicely done animated tale about a family, a father and his son, and the skeletal. And he's kind of like, he's got the death rollers going off and ticking people on his list who've died, and, you know, ticking off the spirits and stuff. And his son decides he wants to try and follow in his father's footsteps in a different way, and it kind of goes pretty wrong. But I must admit, it was stop motion animation, but I think it was beautifully put together, very, very nicely done. The next story was a space-based one, a science fiction story, you could argue. About a lowly astronaut drifting in space. We've kind of seen this thing done before. This was like a bit of a take on Gravity and The Abyss, if you remember the James Cameron film The Abyss. The next story was a short one about a serial killer basically taking a shower in blood. Very grim. And the next one, another pretty fun one, was a story about some clowns at a fairground that go on a massacre, basically. Quite nicely put together, I must admit, that one as well. So those were the stories that you get here. Now, my overall summary, like I say, some of these stories are stronger than others, as you get in all anthology films. Some of them are longer than others, and like I say, some of the ones here that were just snippets, like the serial killer taking a shower in blood, and even the second story about the one that was ripping off Scream, it was quite very short, and I didn't understand the point of it. And there's 2 or 3 of the tales here that didn't need to be here, I think. And the problem is it makes the anthology film too long. It's close to 2 hours. I think an anthology film needs to be about an hour and a half, short, sharp, 4 or 5 strong stories that keep you wanting more. And there is some strong stories here, don't get me wrong. I was quite impressed with some of them. But I just think the smaller ones, the snippets, didn't fit, and they could have taken them out. The Wraparound Story as well is where the title Asylum comes from, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's interesting, if not related almost to the stories. Normally with a Wraparound Story, you get like an introduction to the tales by somebody, and it is and it isn't that to some degree, but it's kind of its own standalone thing, and it makes sense by the end, but it doesn't make sense while you're watching them, if that makes sense. So overall, I'm going to give this series of a 7 out of 10. As you know, I do love an anthology film. I think this is a pretty strong one. I think, like I say, though, it was too long for its own good, and some of the smaller ones should have been taken out. But if you like anthology films, I think there's something here for you to enjoy. So that's my review for Asylum, Twisted Horror and Fantasy Tales. I hope you liked it. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back with more content on Screen Stars very, very soon.